Now, I know you've been kind of teasing the stages. What are the 5 different stages of a business?
Well, the first one is treadmill, and that's where we all start. And you work your butt off, and it's very chaotic, and everything depends on you. You set up the microphone, you set up the chairs, you set up the screen, you set up the printing. You create the revenue, and you create the product that creates the revenue. Mm-hmm. And if you're not at work, nothing happens. You don't really actually own a business when you're at the treadmill stage. You actually own your own job. Because if you don't come to work, you don't get paid. A business, if you don't come to work, you get paid because it keeps running without you. So you really don't own a business yet. And I didn't either. You're just working your tail off. It's exhausting. It's 16-hour days. I would get home, I would flop on the couch, and my wife would say, "What'd you do today?" I said, "I have no idea, but I did a lot of it." You know, and you're just working and running and running and running. You don't feel like you're getting traction. That's why we call it treadmill. You don't feel like you're ever going to get out. And if you don't begin to see a way out of that, you will burn up. Not more than burn out, you'll just burn up. You'll fry. And because the hours are crazy, the stress is crazy, the weight on your shoulders, the whole thing depends on you. The dream is going to die if I take a minute off. I can't let it die. I got to get this done. And it's a lot of fun. You're very important because you are very important. That's kind of nice. And you can really see the short-term feedback loop. You get real quick results and real quick answers to your questions because you're it. And that's very rewarding, but it's not sustainable. And so the way you level up to the Pathfinder stage, the next stage, is you work on a couple of things. One is you work on time management. And you start with the idea of, I have got to do some things that I have to think past Friday. I can't quit. I have to quit thinking short term only. And I've got to start time blocking. And I've got to say, all right, I have to block out time to, in the discussion we're having, to be the product, and I have to block out time to make sure the accounting is done, and I have to block out time to make sure that the SEO people are doing their job with all the social media launches and reels and shorts and TikTok drops and whatever we're doing. I got to watch over their shoulder as the leader and make sure they're getting that done. And I have to block time for that. It doesn't happen unless I block time and I look at it and make sure it happens. So time management is one of the things you do to level up. Very careful time management away from the treadmill. And then the second thing is you start making your first hires here, to where all the production of the actual unit of service or good is not dependent on you. As a matter of fact, you quit doing it. They do it. You might be the product like you and I are, but the video, the editing, the placement, the chopping up and sawdusting out of the actual piece of content, in the case of content people, is not dependent on you. You're going to do your thing in front of the microphone, then somebody else is going to do all that. So we start to put people in place, which is where you are right now. You've done that. And in your case, you usually have 10 to 50 or 60 people at this stage. That would be typical. It's not necessary to be at the stage, but that's about where you are. So you start to delegate the creation of the product and the creation of the revenue. Now you're starting to own a business. And then when you've done that, along with time management, you'll level up and you go into the Pathfinder stage. And at Pathfinder is where you discover you've really got to lean into your values, and your people that you're starting to hire have to be able to complete your sentences. What would Dave do in this situation? What would Dave say in this situation? And if they can complete your sentences, you've got a delegatable environment. But if they don't know what you would do, then they're frozen every time a decision comes in front of them. And so they haven't been trained yet on the values, and they haven't been trained on the decision-making paradigms. And so we train them. We start to build that level of delegatable people, and then we move into Trailblazer. And Trailblazer is the biggest thing that holds you back in Trailblazer is the middle. It's the middle one. It is really frenetic. There's a lot going on. It's so fabulous. A lot of chaos. And the thing holding you back now is what got you here won't get you there. And so you've got to implement systems that are more sophisticated than you've ever done, processes that are more sophisticated than you've ever done, technologies picking up the weight of things that people have been doing on paper. You've been killing too dadgum many trees. We've got to get this digitized. We've got to get this accounting system where it's efficient and automated, not where we have to pull 17 spreadsheets together to make a basic accounting system work. That's ridiculous. And so, but it got us here, but it won't get us there. It's not taking you out. It's not going to keep you, but it's going to keep you from moving forward and getting bigger. And so you really start working on systems and processes. I resisted this stage a lot because I didn't want to be corporate America. I didn't want a bunch of rules. I didn't want a bunch of freaking policies, policy manuals, and people saying, well, accounting said we can't do this, or legal said we can't do this. Bull crap. We got to get this done. And I didn't want that. And so I resist processes because I like the chaos of entrepreneurism, but it won't get you there. You've got to increase your sophistication level and start to do those things. And this is also the place where you start doing your first real serious strategic planning, where you really start looking forward. Not just 2 weeks out, but a good solid 6 month and 1 year plan. Probably some rolling 18 strat ops are going to go on where you do strategic operations, you do some offsites, you sit down, you shut everything down, get the best minds in the room. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? You convert the strategic plan into tactical breakouts of defined objectives, and you get in gear and push it through. And the team is all bought into it. We all know where Florida is, and we all know how we're going to get there. And we know Georgia's going to make sure the tires are good, and Sally's going to make sure that the car's got gas, and Henry's going to make sure we got lunch in the back, and so on. Whatever we got to do to get there. What are the defining objectives that keep us from getting there if we don't do them, and get us there if we do them? When you do that, you move up to peak performer, the fourth stage. That might take you 20 years to do that. It's not going to be 20 months. I don't know how many years. It's not a set number of years, but we have observed that people will move through these things, and only to the extent they do the stuff to level up will they move into that next stage. But the next one is a sweet spot.